Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey guys, and welcome to a new series. This series is aimed for people looking to start out DIY or people that have just started out DIY and might have a couple of questions around it. So what we thought about to discuss first is starter kits, and I mean there's a lot to be said about these starter kits. Of course, they are very appealing to new mixers, but I think all of us has potentially bought some kind of starter kit, and only halfway through mixing realized, hey, but things are just not adding up 100%. I'll leave the discussion open. Richard, you've got a couple of things around starter kits, right?
Yeah. New mixers who come in are usually quite insecure. They're not sure of what it is that they should be buying, and a starter kit offered by a vendor always seems to offer an all-in-one solution where you're getting everything you need, and there's the assumption that you're getting a nice discount on the items because you're buying it all as one kit, and you just need to buy the starter kit, and that gets you off to a flying start in mixing, which is, for me, is totally wrong. I've never seen a starter kit that I would buy, knowing what I know now about mixing. I've never seen a starter kit that would have met my needs as a starter mixer. The first problem is that most starter kits are geared towards mixing by volume, which for me is a mistake right off the bat. I would suggest mixing by weight from the get-go. You don't need pipettes, you don't need syringes, you don't need graded beakers. Those are all volume mixing tools, and you would do better spending your money on a good scale and getting bottles and other containers that are more suited to mixing by weight. The other problem is that you are tied into usually one type of nicotine, which may not be the base or the strength of nicotine that you like. You often get offered accessories like glasses or gloves, which you may not, we don't want to promote unsafe or unhygienic mixing methods, but really, mixing with safety glasses on and gloves and so on, to me is not.
Who does that? Yeah.
It's just not a sane way forward. You don't need this stuff if you are careful and you know what you're doing in mixing.
Richard,
So
I just want to jump in there, and this whole thing with mixing by volume, you spoke about it before, but I think it was in between a show. Mixing by volume is comes from the idea of mixing to like recipes in real life, with food and whatever. That's mixing by volume, and that's why we just naturally think, hey, but it's easier to mix by volume, in the DIY world as well. But in actual fact, it's not that easy. I mean, as soon as you get a syringe in your hand and you start drawing out of your concentrate bottle, it's difficult to kind of see, is this now 3 mils? Is this the 3 mils or 3% that they're looking for? Is that actually, it's confusing. And then in between that, you need to also, wash out your needle before you take the same needle into another concentrate bottle. That's a lot of things that, a new mixer won't be thinking about. But of course, mixing by weight is so much cleaner, a cleaner exercise in my opinion, and easier. So the money that goes in all that other stuff like pipettes and beakers and gloves and all that stuff should potentially go in a very small little, scale to start off with.
Yeah, we conditioned to believing through cooking that mixing by volume is the best way to go. I mean, if you mix up an instant pudding, you don't get told to add 300 grams of milk to the contents of the packet. You get told to add 300 mils of milk or 400 mils of milk. You put that in a bowl and you add your packet and you mix up your sauce or your pudding or whatever it is. And I mean, I remember when I started mixing, I wanted to mix by volume because that's what I knew from the kitchen. And it's just the wrong way. Mixing by weight seems intimidating at first, but when you try it, you will see straight away that it is just vastly preferable to mixing by volume. So if you are going to make a decision that is going to help your mixing in the long term immediately and is going to help you avoid wasting money, make it this. Decide to mix by weight from the get-go. That is the best advice that I can give you. And I haven't seen starter kits that are geared towards mixing by weight, so I would tend to avoid starter kits entirely. If you want to use the starter kit as a checklist for have I got everything, because if you wing it, 10 to 1, what will happen is that you'll forget to order PG or something, and then you sit with your scale, your bottles, your flavors, your nick and everything, and you've got no PG, so no, you can't mix. So if you want to use the contents of a starter kit just as a checklist to make sure that you've got all the correct sort of items before you start mixing, by all means do that. But my recommendation is to buy the items separately and individually, and that gives you the opportunity to tailor the kit exactly the way that you like. Just to look at something like the size of bottles that you get. Sometimes starter kits will give you 20 ml bottles, sometimes they'll give you 100 ml bottles. If you want to mix 50 mils at a time, 100 ml bottle's wrong and a 20 ml bottle's wrong. Rather buy a 50 ml bottle. And the only way you can do that is by having the freedom to choose the implements and the bottles and all the other items that you need, to choose those to suit your needs and your preferences rather than having a vendor put together a kit for you that makes those decisions for you. It's your mixing. Tailor it the way that you want it to be.
Take control of your mixing. You know what I mean?
Take control of your mixing of your life.
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, most people are mixing with strong budgetary considerations. Now, when I think of all the money that I wasted buying stuff like disposable syringes, pipettes, stuff that I thought I needed, and which now sit not being used, graded beakers, 300 ml beakers, 100 ml beakers. What do I use them for? I don't use them for anything. I use a scale now. Rather blow that 250 Rand or $40, $50, whatever it is that you need to spend on a good scale. It'll last you for years. It is so much more accurate. Scale will show you down to 0.01 grams, which is 1/100th of a milliliter. Your eye, when gauging the level of a pipette or a syringe, cannot see anywhere close to 1/100th of a milliliter. You are not going to get even remotely close to the accuracy from a pipette or syringe that you will get from a scale. And people say, oh, but what if the scale isn't accurate? A scale will maximum be out by like 0.5%, which even still is 50 times more accurate than judging with your eye. So mix by weight from the get-go and you will thank us later.
Yeah, the thing is, if sorry, Deeds, but the thing is, if you're gonna be mixing a recipe and then going onto a forum and talking about the recipe, you want to there needs to be some integrity in what you did, right? And if you're mixing by volume, then immediately that just blows out any kind of review or comments that you had, because you could be off by like a half a mil in a syringe without even knowing it, and that can throw the whole recipe out completely. You know, so if you're serious about mixing, just go with mixing by weight, get a little scale, or get a starter kit that includes that, right? Yeah, Deets?
The other,
Rich, you can
no,
go.
the other thing, just on that point, people assume that the gradations on syringes and pipettes are accurate. These things are mass produced in China. Your chances of them being accurate are very small indeed. You could take two graded beakers, hold them side by side. 100 mils in the one is not the same as 100 mils in the other. So there's built-in inaccuracy in mixing by volume as well. The assumption that graded beakers are accurate is not correct. It's not justified. Sorry, Dietz.
No, it's fine. In my opinion, a starter kit is a good idea to buy until you bought one. Then it's not a good idea anymore. As you guys have mentioned with everything else, it seems to be the cheaper option because you're new to DIY and you think, okay, I don't want to waste all my money and go all out and buy everything that's available on the store wherever you're buying. They tend to be attracted to the starter kit because it includes everything, and as you mentioned, it's kind of given to you in the idea that it's cheaper. But if you literally go and look at every part individually, you'll notice it's pretty much the same price, maybe with 10 cents less, maybe. In most cases, it's the same price. And then on top of that, if you remove half of what's in that kit that you know you are not going to use, and especially if you're planning to go, I mean, they give it to you to do volume-based mixing. But if you think about it, if you want to go weight mixing, but the scale is the expensive part to you, then think about what's in that starter kit. And if you remove the volume-based measuring tools like the pipettes and syringes and beakers and all of that, then you're already halfway to a scale. I mean, there's many cheap scales available, and even like as you mentioned, even the cheaper scales that might be out, it's going to be out with a fraction, which is still going to be a lot more accurate than mixing by volume. If you are mixing a 10 ml sample and you are out with, I wouldn't even say half a ml, a fraction of half a ml, that recipe is going to be completely different to what you're mixing. So personally, I say definitely my biggest recommendation would be spend that little bit more money and buy a scale. If you're unsure whether you like DIY or not, instead of buying a DIY kit, these beginner starter kits, one shot is a good idea because it's also volume-based mixing, but that would be more accurate for a beginner, in my opinion, because they give you exactly the measurements that's needed for the mix. That's not entirely DIY in its full, because it's not all the separate concentrates and everything. But for someone who's getting into it and wants to see if they are going to like it or not, I would recommend getting maybe a one shot. If it's cost, that's going to be a lot less than a starter kit in most cases. So you get the one shot, you get the BG, VG, and your nicotine. You mix in your own little bottle, and you've got your juice. If you like it, then spend a little bit more money in it and get the scale. You will not be sorry for the scale. So definitely, it seems like a good idea with beginner kits, but I personally also don't think it's worth it. I've still got syringes from the beginner kit I bought, and the next day I remembered, luckily I had a scale lying around my house, which I think I used once, and then it was just packed up. So I was lucky with that scale. So next day I had the scale and realized it was much better and it's easier. I mean, I had a lot of stuff. I tried mixing with syringes and stuff, and on my first day I was a bit clumsy and not really had my table laid out the way I have now. I mean, if I mix something, everything's in order, and PG, VG, Nick, where everything is. Back then, I had a syringe over a concentrate bottle that didn't have a needle tip. It's just a bottle with a cap. That was beginner mistake number one. So I would draw out of the syringe, something would happen. You look at the scale and you bump over a bottle of concentrate. That's gone. Everything smells like Bavarian cream for 3 months. You're angry. Your first DIY experience was ruined. So for beginners, I would recommend one shot. And if you're getting into it, definitely get the scale.
So then one shots is the new
I would say, honestly, for
step
me,
of
cost
DIY.
effective
Yeah.
and feeling the waters, I mean, it gives you that novelty of, I'm mixing my own things. It is volume based, but it's a lot less risk for a beginner, in my personal opinion, with all these one shots popping up. It's so easy and everything's there, and it's becoming cheaper and cheaper. So
I think that's that's going to happen when using pipettes. You're going to make this mistake because I made it, where you think a pipette is clean, and it's not. So you use the pipette that you just dripped some like hot tamale cinnamon from into your mix, and you dip that in your strawberry ripe, and congratulations, you now have a cinnamon strawberry concentrate where you can just throw the whole bottle
Away. Yeah.
away. Rather buy your own stuff. And the thing is, think when you're buying your implements, be guided by the overall philosophy that what you want is implements where you can dispense accurately down to 1 drop. That is your guiding philosophy. It almost drove me insane when I started mixing, trying to find bottles where I could dispense PG and VG. Because what happens, you get a big bottle of PG or VG from the manufacturer. It's got a screw cap on it. Now, you can't upend a bottle of PG and pour it into your mix. It's going to come out in a rush. So now how do you get it that it goes down to 1 drop? Exactly what Theo is showing there. Now, what I did, I bought ketchup bottles, I bought alkaline cold pipe bottles, I bought all manner of plastic bottles until I discovered the magic of the witch's cap.
Witch hat.
Witch's hat cap. That is the bottle that I get my PG in from the supplier. I just take the screw cap off, I put on the witch's hat cap, and that gives me a spout where I can literally go down to 1 drop at a time. And that is the key to mixing accurately by weight. Obviously, your concentrate bottles have a dropper built in where you can dispense 1 drop at a time, but it's important to have that for your VG and PG as well, and especially your nick. I mean, I put my nick in a bottle like that.
It reminds me of PET bottles.
Drop a bottle, and you can dispense 1 drop at a time, so you can get your nick absolutely spot on. Now, if you're dipping a pipette in a bottle of nick and try to squeeze it into your things, are just going to go wrong very quickly. So think carefully and buy implements that allow you to dispense 1 drop at a time. It saves you an awful lot of time, an awful lot of money, an awful lot of frustration.
Cool. Guys, is there anything else, or can we wrap up the show?
That's it.
Buy scale.
Buy scale. Buy 1 shot. Anyway, cheers, guys. Thank you so much for watching the show. So please share this with all your buddies that are thinking of moving into DIY. This is definitely something that they need to consider. We want a positive experience when they start DIYing. So something like this is really valuable to them. So yeah, share this, please. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching the show. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.